Ever feel like the world's getting a bit too chaotic? Like you're constantly chasing the next thing,
Absolutely.
the next notification, the next dopamine hit.
Mm.
Well, you're not alone.
Hmm.
And that's where Stoicism comes in, right?
Yeah.
An ancient philosophy that's surprisingly relevant to our modern struggles.
I agree.
And we're taking a deep dive today into a little book of Stoicism by St. George Stock,
Okay.
a summary that you provided, by the way,
Yes.
to see how this 2,000-year-old wisdom can help us navigate the madness of modern life, right?
It's amazing how Stoicism, a philosophy that originated in ancient Greece, still resonates with people today.
Right.
It offers this timeless framework for finding peace and
Right.
meaning,
Yeah.
even amidst the whirlwind of daily life.
It's almost like Stoicism was designed for the age of anxiety,
Yeah.
So the book kicks off by explaining what Stoicism actually is.
Uh-huh.
It all started way back in the 3rd century BC in Athens, right?
That's right.
With a philosopher named Zeno of Citium.
Yeah. And unlike some philosophies that are purely theoretical, Stoicism is all about action.
Okay.
It emphasizes living in accordance with virtue as the highest good
Okay.
and the path to true happiness, what they called eudaimonia.
So it's not about, like, accumulating wealth
Not at all.
or chasing fleeting pleasures.
No. The Stoics recognized that external factors like wealth or status are ultimately less important than inner character. They focused on cultivating the 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance.
Okay, let's dive into these virtues.
Sure.
Wisdom seems pretty straightforward, making thoughtful choices, understanding the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But what about courage? Are we talking about facing down lions in an arena?
Not quite. Stoic courage isn't just about physical bravery.
Okay.
It's about moral fortitude.
Okay.
It's the strength to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult or unpopular. Think of it as resilience in the face of challenges, staying true to your principles no matter what.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how does justice fit into this framework of virtues?
Justice for the Stoics is about fairness and equity.
Okay.
It's not just about following the law.
Right.
It's about treating everyone with respect and acting for the common good,
Yeah.
advocating for those who need it most.
Here, finally, we have temperance. Does this mean, like, giving up all the good things in life?
Definitely not.
Becoming some kind of, like, ascetic monk?
Temperance is about finding balance.
Okay.
It's about self-control and moderation,
Right.
not letting your desires or impulses dictate your actions. The Stoics believed that overindulgence can cloud our judgment and lead us away from reason and virtue.
So it's about enjoying things in moderation, right?
like,
Ensuring our desires don't control us.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be incredibly valuable in today's world, right? We're constantly bombarded with temptations.
And it's important to remember that these 4 virtues aren't isolated concepts. They work together, supporting and reinforcing each other.
Right.
You need wisdom to act courageously and courage to uphold justice.
Yeah.
They're all interconnected, forming the foundation for a virtuous life.
It's fascinating how these ancient principles can be so applicable to modern life.
Yeah.
This idea of interconnectedness reminds me of something else that was mentioned in the source material.
Okay.
Living in accordance with nature.
Yeah.
But honestly, that concept always felt a bit vague to me.
Mm-hmm. It's true that the concept of living in accordance with nature can seem a bit abstract.
Right.
But think of it this way. The Stoics believed that the universe operates according to a rational order,
Okay.
a kind of cosmic blueprint, if you will.
Yeah.
This order, which they called logos,
Okay.
governs everything from the movement of the planets to the cycles of life and death.
So it's about recognizing that we're part of something much larger than ourselves.
Precisely. And living in accordance with nature means aligning our actions and choices with this universal order.
Yeah.
It's about understanding our place in the grand scheme of things
Okay.
and striving to live virtuously even when faced with challenges.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the flow of the universe, right?
Uh-huh.
But how do we actually do that
Yeah.
when life throws us curveballs?
Right.
Right. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Things don't always go according to plan.
That's where one of the most powerful Stoic principles comes in.
Okay.
The dichotomy of control.
Uh-huh.
The Stoics were big on recognizing the difference between what we can control and what we can't.
Ah, yes. The dichotomy of control. This is something I've been trying to apply in my own life.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's easier said than done.
I understand completely.
Yeah.
It's a practice, not a perfect state of being.
Right.
But the key is to focus our energy and attention on what we can directly influence.
Oh.
Our thoughts, our actions, our responses to situations. We can't control external events, other people's opinions,
Right.
or even, as the book mentions, plain old bad luck.
It's so easy to get caught up in those things, though.
It is.
Like, I can't control whether my train is delayed,
Yeah.
but I can absolutely stress about it for hours.
Right.
What are some practical ways to actually apply this dichotomy of control when those anxieties start creeping in?
The source material highlights some powerful techniques.
Okay.
Mindfulness is a big one.
Mm.
By paying attention to the present moment without judgment,
Yeah.
we can detach from those worries about the past or future that we have no control over.
The book also mentions journaling as a helpful practice.
Right.
Getting those anxieties down on paper could help you gain some perspective.
It can.
But what about those times when things really go wrong?
Yeah.
Like, what if you lose your job or receive devastating news? How does Stoicism help with those heavy emotional blows?
That's where the Stoic approach to emotions gets really interesting.
Okay.
They weren't about suppressing emotions altogether.
Right.
Instead, they recognize that it's our judgments about events,
Okay.
not the events themselves,
Yeah.
that create our emotional responses.
So it's not the situation itself, but our interpretation of it that matters.
Exactly.
Give me an example of how this works.
Imagine you're facing a tight deadline at work.
Okay.
Your initial reaction might be, this is impossible, I'm going to fail.
Right.
That kind of thinking immediately triggers stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
But a Stoic might say, okay, this is a challenging situation, but I have the skills to manage it. Let me break it down into smaller steps and focus on what I can do right now.
So it's about taking a step back,
Yeah.
using reason and logic to assess the situation,
Yeah.
rather than getting swept away by our initial emotional reactions. That makes sense, but it still sounds pretty tough to do in the heat of the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes practice, but the Stoics had techniques for developing this kind of mental resilience.
Okay.
One of them is called premeditatio malorum, essentially mentally rehearsing potential challenges before they happen.
Wait, so intentionally thinking about bad things.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of counterproductive? Wouldn't it make you more anxious?
It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but by mentally preparing for potential difficulties, you actually build up resilience.
Yep.
You're less likely to be thrown off balance when those challenges actually arise.
Right.
It's like practicing for a big presentation or difficult conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The more you rehearse different scenarios, the better you'll be able to navigate the situation when it actually happens.
I can definitely see the value in that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about virtues, the dichotomy of control, and this Stoic approach to managing emotions.
Right.
It's all starting to come together.
Uh-huh.
But there's another concept that I'd love to explore a bit further.
Okay.
This idea of amor fati, or love of fate.
Yeah.
The book mentions it briefly, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what this really means.
Amor fati is a powerful concept, and it gets right to the heart of Stoic philosophy.
Okay.
It's about accepting everything that happens in life, both the good and the bad,
Yeah.
with a sense of peace and even gratitude.
So it's not just about like enduring difficult situations,
No.
but like embracing them.
Yeah,
That sounds incredibly challenging,
it is.
especially when faced with real hardship or loss, right?
It is challenging,
Yeah.
but the Stoics believe that by accepting what we can't control, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering.
Right.
They saw challenges as opportunities for growth,
Right.
as tests of our virtue.
Okay.
And by embracing even the difficult moments, we can find a deeper sense of peace and meaning in life.
That's a powerful perspective shift. You know, it reminds me of that quote from the book,
Well,
freedom is the name of virtue, slavery, a vice. It seems like amor fati is a key part of that freedom, right?
it is.
That liberation from being controlled by external circumstances or our own negative emotions.
You've hit the nail on the head. The Stoics believed that true freedom comes from aligning ourselves with virtue and reason,
Okay.
by accepting what life throws at us,
Yeah.
both the good and the bad, with a sense of equanimity.
Right.
We become less reactive,
Yeah.
less controlled by external events or other people's opinions.
Right.
We cultivate an inner strength that can weather any storm.
So to circle back to our listener, right,
Yeah.
who's all about efficiency and getting the most out of their time, it seems like we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've explored the origins of Stoicism,
Yeah.
those 4 cardinal virtues.
Right.
the dichotomy of control,
Mm-hmm.
the Stoic approach to managing emotions,
Yeah.
and even some practical exercises for integrating these principles into daily life.
I agree. We've taken a deep dive into the core principles of Stoicism,
Yeah,
principles that are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago.
right,
And the beauty of Stoicism is that it's not just a philosophy to be studied,
right.
it's a philosophy to be lived.
Exactly, and that's what I love about the source material we've been discussing.
Yeah.
It offers practical tools and techniques that anyone can apply,
Uh-huh.
regardless of their background or beliefs.
Absolutely.
Right.
And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I'd like to leave our listener with something to reflect on.
Okay.
Of all the Stoic principles and practices we've discussed today,
Yeah.
what resonates most with you?
Mm?
What single idea could you start applying in your own life?
Right.
Starting right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's focusing on those 4 cardinal virtues, or practicing the dichotomy of control, or maybe even experimenting with a morning reflection practice.
It's about taking what you've learned and making it your own.
Yeah.
That's what Stoicism is all about.
Mhm.
Finding what works for you and applying it to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Well said.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep seeking knowledge and keep diving deep